We're talking today with Mr. Charles Weingate of Byron Center, Michigan. The interviewer is James Smither of Grand Valley State University. Okay. Mr. Weingate, can you start by telling us a little bit about your own background? For instance, where were you born?
I was born in West Hazelton, Pennsylvania.
All right, and where is that in the state?
Oh, that's more towards the eastern part of Pennsylvania, just north of Harrisburg.
Okay. And what did your family do?
Well, my dad was a coal miner, and he almost got killed. Well, in fact, they gave him up for dead. And they worked on him for about a full day, and they finally brought him back to life.
Was he in a mining accident?
Yeah, he was in a mining accident.
Okay.
So he said, well, I don't know, I don't think I want to go through with this anymore. I was glad of that, because otherwise I'd have been a coal miner too.
Right. And how old were you when that happened?
Well, I was around 2 years old, but then he got into what they call carpenter work, stuff like that. But then that didn't last long because they didn't have much of that out there.
Right.
It was mostly coal mines. So then he heard that the Grand Rapids here had cabinet makers they needed. So he went here and got a job, and sent for us. Well, then naturally, as soon as he sent for us, the Depression set in. So here we are stuck in Michigan with no place to live, no place to eat, and all that. Oh boy, it was rough. And it was stayed rough like that for quite a few years.
So how did you get by?
Well, we had what they call script. We used to go down once a week downtown with a wagon, and they'd give us like eggs, rice, and different other commodities. And we'd get coupons to go to the fire barn to get milk and bread. It was all, but you had to get all these things together.
Right.
Once a week or once a month, you get all this. And then finally it got to be where they started doing some more hiring in Grand Rapids, like the Depression was getting over. Well, then he started working, and he was working as a cabinet maker. He started putting in a lot of overtime then too, because they were trying to catch up. And, well, we thought it was pretty nice that he, got that job. And I was going to Harrison Park School at the time, and once I got out of Harrison Park, then went into what they call Union High School. Well, when we lived at on Broadway, just south of Leonard Street, I was going all the way to Harrison. Then I moved into the high school. Well, naturally, what happens? My mother and dad, they start putting a down payment on a house. Well, you look out the back door, and here's Harrison Park High School there. So we just making a long walk all the time,
Now, did you graduate from high school?
Yeah, I graduated in February '44.
All right.
See, now, what was happening, usually your midterm graduates had to wait till June to get their diploma. But the war was, going pretty bad. So anybody that got to be 18, they drafted right away. But I was 18 on November 1st. They turned around, they drafted me, let me finish high school, get my diploma, in February '44. So, and I always says, the ink was never dry on my diploma. They had me in Fort Sheridan, Illinois. That's the way it works,
Now, did you go, was Fort Sheridan the first place you went, or did they send you to Fort Custer first?
Well, then I went from Fort Sheridan, went to Camp Crowder, Missouri. That's where I was in the Signal Corps. Okay. Learned to be a radio operator.
Now, how did you wind up being in the Signal Corps? Did they just assign you, or did they test you, or
what they did, they gave you tests. Like, could you distinguish between dot, dit, and dot, And if you look pretty good at it, well, send them Signal Corps, because a lot of people can't comprehend that stuff. And I had been, when I was younger, I was a Boy Scout, and we used to have to learn the Morse code in a Boy Scout. Well, then I was familiar about, how they, A, B, C, and all that. So it It's kind of weird when I went in for my physical just before I was 18. They had a guy would look when you work over and all that, and he was always there with a stamp, bump, the bump, the bump, you know. And, whoa, what's going on here? Everybody's going up there getting a bump. And he got my name up there. He was going to stamp it down. He looked at it, looked at it, looked at it. All of a sudden he says, put that aside, and he put the thing off to the side. Come to find out, they were taking replacements for the Red Arrow Division that was almost wiped out in New Guinea. And that's where they were sending all those other guys, boom, boom. Hey, if you didn't have anything that had any kind of a smarts to it, you were in the infantry right away.
Okay. And what do you think separated you from the rest of the group at that point? Because that's just at the physical there.
Well, because I could probably tell code.
And then you're saying they did, now that was, were they sorting that out when you said when you were taking your physical?
That's when I was taking the physical.
Okay.
That was
So-
even before I was drafted.
Okay, but were they giving you tests, or how did they know you knew anything about Morse code?
Well, they give you little pamphlets you had to check over and all that.
Okay.
They kind of knew by the way you answered everything, whether you had the smarts or you didn't, you know.
Okay. So the Army got something right.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
They marked you for the Signal Corps. Now tell us a little bit, let's see, before you went to Fort Sheridan and then out to Missouri, had you taken long train trips that you could remember?
No, those were the
So what
only...
was that like for you?
Well, that was something different because I never rode on a train before. And here all of a sudden you're going here and then going there. And then to top it off, after we got into this sonic deception outfit, and when we were, they had figured we were ready to go, they wanted us over in Asia. So we all get all our screens test and all of shots and all that. Then all of a sudden we got on the train, our equipment's on the train too, because we had special equipment, you know. It wasn't out of the run of the field.
Right.
And they going along and, oh, you're going by these houses and everybody waving, you know, and you're waving back. It was quite comical. And then we got past St. Louis, Missouri, and all of a sudden, whoop, the train stopped. And they come back and says, we're going back to Pine Camp, New York. They got a letter, missed us in St. Louis. We got as far as Beaumont, Kansas. Now we're going back. First, they wanted us to go to North Carolina, port of debarkation. And our commanding officer said, nope, we're going back to Pine Camp, New York. Which was, in a way, I could see his point. In a way, I think it was a big mistake because there was some of the guys that were in the outfit got married while they were in Pine Camp, New York.
So had the unit then been in Pine Camp before you joined it? Was that?
They were from Pine Camp also.
Well, let's back up a little bit here. Let's kind of follow your training process through a little bit more carefully.
Oh.
You see, the first place they send you is Camp Crowder, Missouri.
Yeah.
Now, was that just for basic training?
Yeah, basic and then specialist training of a radio operator.
Okay. Now, describe the basic training experience for us. What did they do when you got, first thing when you got to Camp Crowder, or what happened, or what did they do?
Well, they kind of put you in platoons, and then all of a sudden you got to, let's see, how they do that. They put you in a platoon. Each one had your own special platoon, and they would have your roll call every morning and then all that. And then they'd go to your, like training, 8-mile hike, 10-mile hike, you know. They'd break in the end, you know.
Okay. And what were the drill sergeants like?
Pardon?
What were the drill sergeants like?
Oh, some of them were fairly good, and some were kind of, they are the cheese, and, you know, whatever they say goes. They had one, it wasn't so much the sergeant as later on, that's going down the road yet. But we had, you had to take your gun test, rifle range.
Right.
And we had one guy that was in there. He was from the Second Army, which was breaking up because they said they were so overly trained they couldn't even do what they were supposed to do. No, they were breaking them up and retraining them. So one happened to be in our outfit, and he got ready to. You had so many days of practice run on shooting, and then you had the final day was the record day. But he always kept saying, there ain't nobody in this outfit going to shoot an expert because it's so hard. Them targets are so far away, you can't even hardly see them. So he kept saying that. Well, first day, I fired expert, and second day expert, and third day expert. And this, our platoon sergeant, he found out that I was firing expert all days, all those 3 times. Oh boy, here come big bets on from one platoon to the next. My platoon's going to beat your platoon and all that. Oh boy, money, 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 money. There was always something, had to gamble on something when you were in the Army, So then he had kept that come opening day, and I fired expert. And I was I think about 6th in the battalion of 4 companies.
Right.
And I was the 6th highest one in there. And that one, it was from the Second Army. How do you ever do that? I said, well, when I was a kid, I used to practice with a BB gun, You kind of learn how to shoot, and how your sights go, and then how far away, and all that. That was, I kind of enjoyed that too, that they let you really, get out there and shoot. But it was so weird. And when you fired, you had 9 rounds of ammunition that would you fire in a prone position, 9 in the kneeling, 9 in the sitting, and then 9 in the standing. Well, standing was the hardest position because you're not anchored, anyway. And then you got your strap around here, and then, but then you just move a little bit, and that target there is about more than 50 yards away. And that thing seems to, where's that thing? That little bitty spot there that goes on top of the sight. Yeah.
Now, once they got you through the basic training, then you also said you also got then radio training?
Yeah, they sent us into what is called specialist training, which some guys were, like me, I was a radio operator, and some of them went into what they call a pole lineman, where you had to learn about climbing up the poles. We had to do that too, but that was something else. You climb up the pole, and then you have the strap on, you put it on the top, and you walk around the pole, and you come back down. But that was part of your specialist training. You had to take for 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, and listen to this dot-it. You were doing Senate yourself, see?
Right.
And these instructors, they'd listen, and it sounded like you were doing, pretty good on it. Well, then they send you over the recorder, and then have you record it on, and then after it's recorded, they send it back to you, and you got to write it down. It gets tricky too.
So how long did it take you to get pretty good at it?
Well, I think we were, 6 weeks in basic, and then 6 weeks in the specialist. And about that time, they were looking to make this outfit up that we ended up being in.
Right.
And come to find out, they were taking men from the Air Force, the Armored Force, the engineers, the Signal Corps, just about everything you think of. There were 2,000 men that were called into this thing, and then they screened them all out till we were down to 200 men.
Okay. Now, did they do this? Where did they do the screening, or was that?
That was in Pine Camp, New York.
Okay. So at what point were you sent to Pine Camp, New York?
Well, that was right from Camp Crowder, Missouri.
Okay. So can you remember about what time of year that was? Because that'll be in 44 sometime. Is that maybe May or?
I think it was either May or June somewhere, because the weather was warm. And outside the camp there there used to be a little pond out there, and we used to go swimming in it. It was off our area, but
How did they go about screening the men in the units? They bring their 2,000 men together there. How do they sort them out and decide who they're going to keep?
oh, I don't know how they did that, but it was, see, what they ended up doing is have a tank operator be able to drive the tanks. Radio operator to operate the radio.
Right.
Then they had the other one was more or less supposed to be like a second driver. But that was another thing with that outfit. Every man in the outfit had to know how to drive every vehicle in the outfit. Everything from a Jeep to a tank. You know, I mean, it was...
Now, why don't you describe this company that you were in? What was its, how was it made up? What was it supposed to do?
Well, what we were supposed to do was make sound to deceive the enemy into thinking that there was something there that wasn't there. And, well, it worked pretty good for us because we did it 3 nights in a row up on this mountain road. But every time we got done, then we'd take off and go in the back.
Well, it's going to go back again here to the training and so forth. When they're putting the unit together, well, what kind of equipment did the unit have? How did you do sonic perception?
We had to learn about sound, how it travels in type of weather, warm weather, cold weather, wet weather, and all that. We had to learn all about sound, how it travels during the daytime and at night. Then we'd have to go and do our training at night.
And what kind of equipment were you working with?
It was what they call a wire mag. They didn't have tapes then, they had wire. And it was, sound was imposed upon wire, and then you'd run that through this, looked like a little jump box. It had the tape here and the tape roll there, and you'd run that through there with the sound on this wire.
And then how would you project the sound?
That would be projected from this big speaker that we put up in the turret.
Okay. In the turret of what?
Pardon?
What kind of vehicles are you using that have these speakers in them?
This would be M10 tanks, which is a big vehicle.
Okay. And the M10, that was the one that had sort of the chassis of a Sherman tank, but it had a big open top instead of the closed turret.
Yeah.
So you could use the open top there and have the speakers mounted in it then.
Yeah. What they had, they took the big gun out of there, and then they put in a piece of pipe, make it look like a howitzer barrel.
Yep.
There was nothing to it, just a howitzer piece of pipe. But they were heavy tanks. They were big tanks.
Okay. And about how long were you training and working with this equipment in New York before they shipped you out?
I think we worked with it for about 6 or 7 months, because it was getting ready cold, it was snowing already.
Okay. It's getting late in the year, and then they ship you out, and that's when you're put on the trains and you start going west, and you get as far out as Kansas, and then they turn you around?
Then they turned us around, come back.
Okay.
And well, some of the guys that in the outfit that got married while they were in training, they decided, hey, I'll go see my girlfriend or my wife or whatever. So, see, at Pine Camp, New York, it was a big camp because it used to be a camp for armored forces.
Right.
They used to tanks in there. But what was going on now, the big part of the camp had Italian prisoners of war. Then this little stockade that set off to the side, that's where we were. We were all locked in. You couldn't get in or out without a pass. 8-foot high barbed wire fence around there. And if you come in late, well, you were the AWOL or something like that. But here, the Italian prisoners of war got the run of the camp, and we're confined. But we had our own PX and theater and all that, you know. But
Did they have any of the Italian prisoners working in your part of the camp for you?
no way.
That's right.
That was,
So you stopped off at the camp then, you kind of come back from your train trip, you're going to be shipped out, and you said that was probably a mistake to send them back to New York.
because some of these guys went over the top of the wire and went into town to their sweethearts and their wives. And all of a sudden, lieutenant come around in the barracks, bed check. Where are they? Well, they're probably the PX. What do you think they're going to be? Well, we were trying to cover for them. We knew where they were. But as soon as he left, we got on the phone calling these guys in the town. Hey, you better get back here because they're bed checking you guys. And some, they didn't care, but they had a truck go into town with the MPs and pick these guys up. They brought them back. They demoted every one of them for going over the fence, you know. But that was, but that lieutenant never made it overseas either. When we got to port of debarkation, they replaced him with another lieutenant that had nothing to do with their outfit.
Do you have any idea why that lieutenant got replaced? Because he let his men go?
Because he was so harsh on these guys. Once they brought him back in, they put him in a orderly room, and they stood a guard over him, you know, that they couldn't. And he was there watching them all the time, too. They kept, we'll get you, we'll get you, we'll get you, we'll get you. So they figured they better not, because they were all talking about he's going to have about 100 bullets in his back. So, I don't know.
Now, how long were you there then before they actually put you on the boat and send you overseas?
Well, as soon as we got there, we were there about 2 weeks, and they sent us down to North Carolina. And they put us on a boat to go overseas.
Okay. And what kind of ship did they put you on?
We were like a troop transport.
Okay.
There was, maybe a couple thousand other men on there besides us.
Now, was this a converted ocean liner, or was it just a boat built to be a troop transport, as far as you can tell?
Well, it was, I don't know what kind of a liner it would be, but the name of it was the Blue Goose.
Okay.
It was like a transport. The thing was, they got us to Italy and Naples, and they started back home, and they got out of the Mediterranean, and we were told they got sunk by a German U-boat.
Now, what was your trip like? You're crossing the ocean. You've never done that before. What was that like for you?
We had a lot of fun with that because about halfway across hit a storm. And talk about the head is where the toilet is,
Right.
you know. That's way up in the front of the ship, and you go in there and you're sitting on this stool, and you got the bars over here, and all of a sudden, it'll like to drive you right to the stool.
And were the men getting seasick, or had they done
Oh,
that
yes, there
already?
were a lot of them. Most of us tried to eat, because they said if you don't eat, you will get sick. And they used to have 50-gallon drums all around on the deck, cabled in so they wouldn't fly off, you know.
Right.
And guys be on deck, and that's where they were putting all their deposit. And some guys would go down to eat, and all of a sudden the ship would run, and whoop, he'd go all over the plate in front of him, and then the whole table just goes down the line. Man, that was finally after about I think it was pretty close to a week of that, it finally smoothed out a little bit. And by that time, we were getting close to.
Were you traveling with a convoy at that point?
Oh, yes, we had, every once in a while, there was this destroyer that was off on our side. He'd beep, 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 and he'd take off, and boy, a couple seconds later, whoom, here come a bigger one right behind, took his place. They had these ships certain locations so that if the Germans were going to get any of the troop transports, they'd have to get the battleships first, or destroyers, or whatever, cruisers.
As far as you know, were there any actual U-boat scares while you were going across, or was it
Not when we were going across, no.
Okay.
On the way back there was.
Do you remember going through the Straits of Gibraltar?
Pardon?
Did you remember going through the Straits of Gibraltar between Africa
Oh,
and
yes,
Spain?
yes. That was quite something. Everybody, hey, look, here's it. And all these dolphins or porpoises, they'd be, and they'd follow the ship as it goes along.
Okay. And then where did you land in Italy?
And that was in Naples.
Okay. And what did that look like?
Well, The war, you could say, was over in Naples already, but the people there were, some were not the friendliest, and some were, oh, you're glad to see more German Americans come in. But we weren't there very long because we got off the ship. They put us into like a big hangar with bunks in it, you know. That slept one night, and then moved up again the next day, till we got all the way up to Pisa.
Okay.
And once we were in Pisa, there was a big house there, right on the foothills of like hills, olive trees all over the place. This big house, it held 200 men.
That was the size of your unit. So.
In fact, it was quite something. But we stayed in that house for about a week or so, and I guess there must have been orders coming down that were needed.
Okay. Now, do you remember about what time of year that was then? Because we're in spring of 45
That
now?
was already in the spring, because over in Italy, it was getting to be where we run our tanks back and forth through there, that if you went to jump off the tank, you'd go up waist deep in the mud. And they try to pull you out of there.
Okay.
It was in the spring.
And then where did they send you?
Pardon?
Where did your unit go? You get your
Where
orders
did
to
we
go
go
forward?
from there? Then we went to what they call the Upper Apennines. There was the Germans had a deadlock on the Upper Apennines there. We couldn't seem to break it. Well, what they had us do was go up there and do like on a mountain road, these tanks out, and then space them so far apart, and then start our programming of tanks moving up there with these big speakers on the tank. Once we got up to the top, they had this British outfit that was attached to us. And they had these rubber tanks with canvas on it. And, they would just put a little bit of the tank so the Germans could see it, but not completely cover it, see. Make the Germans, oh, there it is, and start shooting at it, see.
So what was the basic purpose of all of this? What were you trying to do?
What we were trying to do was weaken the German lines so we could break through.
And how would your unit help to weaken the German line?
Well, because after we were there for 3 nights, they had pulled a lot of the heavy firepower from the flanks, both flanks, into this sector where we were.
Right.
Well, as soon as after the third night, they had what they call an American-Japanese division over there along the west coast in Italy.
Right.
They broke through the lines, come in and behind, back of the Germans there. Well, the Germans had it smart because they had all their firepower pulled into the center, so they made a thrust and broke through. Well, that's where we had to come in again. They had us get into trucks, and they would record all this. The trucks pulling up there, the tailgate dropped down, and the GIs jumping out of there and running and running, clunking, you know, making noise. And they did enough of that to be able to have half of our company be on one side of the bulge and the other on the other side of the bulge.
So you're making noises to convince the Germans that you're reinforcing?
Like infantry moving in, jumping out of trucks, you know.
Right.
Well, the commanding officer of the Germans, he was kind of puzzled about the whole thing, because after a while he just, I don't know where you got the other armies from, but I knew you had the 5th and the 8th. And I wasn't about to sacrifice my men just to find out where you got that other army from. It was us 200 stupid people.
Tell me a little bit about that. When the first night when you're going in to make the tank noises for the first time, what happened to your unit that night?
What happened that night? That was Germans started throwing shells over at us. It was dark; they couldn't see where to shoot.
But they heard tanks, so
they heard tanks, so they just boom, 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 and they told us if you could hear these artillery shells going over, it's kind of a flutter noise. It's not like lightning, but it's a flutter noise. And they said, if you can hear that, you're safe, because the one that's going to get you, you don't hear it all. It gets you before the sound gets to it.
Now, what vehicle were you in, or what kind of vehicle were you in?
I was in what they call a 3/4 ton, because I was the radio operator for the platoon, control operator.
So you're just in a truck then?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So you're not in one of the tanks, you're in a truck?
No.
Okay. And who was there with you?
There was my lieutenant and a platoon sergeant, and then our driver. There was 4 of us in there.
Right.
And when the Germans started throwing shells at us, one jumped in the tank in front of us, one jumped in the tank behind us. That's when I collared the lieutenant the next day. I says about him taking off and leaving me and the driver there alone with all that, just no protection at all. And he kind of commented that we didn't have to worry because they had tracer and HE and all that, but no CP. CP, what's CP? He says canvas piercing. Wow, anything goes through canvas, you know. But he was kind of a comic anyway.
Well, did he do better after that? I mean,
He was always, with the guys. He didn't try to pull himself off that, I'm the head cheese here and do as I say, you know. He would just talk to you almost like a father and son.
Yeah. Was he any older than you were?
Yeah, he was about 6 years older than I was.
Okay. And do you know what he'd done before the war, or?
No. He, all I know is he got to be our lieutenant because they had to have lieutenants, you know, when they were making up this 2,000-man whirlpool. That was something else, I'll tell you, Dave. But after we had made the Germans surrender in the upper Apennines there, then we broke into the Po Valley, and I'll tell you.
So did you actually capture the part of the German force that had counterattacked you?
Just the ones that were in that bulge. The rest of them, they took off.
So they surrendered rather than just try to
they
retreat?
surrendered instead of rather getting annihilated, trying to figure out where we got the other guys from.
And did you get a look at any of the Germans when you captured them?
No, because we always worked at night, and the capture was done during the daytime.
So you just heard about it then?
Yeah,
from people.
that they were captured.
All right. So then you say then you're moving forward again after this?
We moved forward into the Po Valley, got part way there, not quite up to the Po River, and then they made us stay there for a couple days. Well, it was a couple weeks. Then pretty soon, okay, we got to move. We moved way up north to the northern, what they call the southern part of the Alps.
Right.
And there was a big lake right there, Lake Garda. And we were stationed there for, I don't know, a couple, 3 weeks. Then all of a sudden we got orders to go back down to Rome, that we're going to be sent to Asia. So we, in the process of getting everything ready in Rome, all of a sudden we had this little newspaper they call Stars and Stripes, and it says in there about they dropped the atomic bomb on Japan. All of a sudden our ship was canceled. They gave it to the war brides, you know. They came to the States and we were still there. But once they weren't going to send us then they said, well, you guys can't just sit here and do nothing. So they put us on what they call on-the-job training.
Okay, and doing what?
So they give you different things. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Well, there was 3 other guys and I decided we wanted to go see what's going on in the Air Force. So they sent us back down to Naples, Capodichino Air Base in Naples. And that was what they call a 36th Depot Repair Squadron. And what they did there was process all the equipment that was going out of the country or being into the country and scrapped out or whatever. And that was part of our job. Every little piece had to be itemized and tagged. And but well, I didn't mind it because while I was there, I got promoted twice. Ended up being a tech sergeant instead of a T4. So, but then they turned around and they says, okay, now you got enough points where you can go home.
Okay, and when was that?
Huh?
When was that?
Oh, that was, let's see, about June of 46.
Okay, so you're there a good while then. Now, how did you spend your time, or what did you do when you were off duty, when you're down there in Naples?
There was, the four of us, when we worked on this processing stuff, they sent a lot of photography equipment, enlargers, and whatever. We even rolled our own negatives, because it was all done dark.
Right.
And so there was a little building that was on the base there. I don't know, it was more like a outbuilding for guards or something like that. And so we got permission to go in there, and we had all this photography equipment, enlargers and developers and all. And all of a sudden, here come guys that found out we were doing developing and printing. Hey, can you develop this roll of film for me? Well, we started developing the film. We found a kind of naughty stuff. That's why they wouldn't take it to the PX, see? Then they wanted them all, okay, enlarge them now. Oh, boy.
So these were guys having a good time in Naples then?
Yeah. We tried to be, well, we had the one guy, he kind of wanted to be in town a lot, and he come down with VD. And then they had sent him to the hospital, and he got corrected. About the time he come back from the hospital, they told him that, hey, you got to watch yourself. You come down with that again if you're not messing around. Well, he got a pass right away. Went into town. And all of a sudden they got orders for us to be shipped out and go to where our outfit was up in Rome, see? Well, he turned around, he had to go for a physical. He had it again, and oh, man, talk about a grown man cry. We told you to keep it in your pants, You wouldn't listen. No, you had to do that. That's because he always, come on, you guys, come on. Heck with that. Too much of that out there, So, yeah, we had to come back home out to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin. And that's where I was discharged from.
And then did you just come back to Michigan then from there?
Pardon?
Did you go home from there, then go home to Michigan?
Yeah, once we were there, that was the end of it, and then you were discharged. They didn't send us to Fort Sheridan because everything was going out through McCoy. There was another big camp up there.
Okay. Now, what did you do after you got home?
What did I do after I get home? I was going to go to college, and from being in service, I was kind of shaky. And I went to get a cup of coffee. I couldn't get a full cup. I had a partial cup because I was shaky like that. And I thought, oh man, I'm not going to be able to sit down and study, and So I'll hold off for a while. So I went and got a job instead.
Okay. And what kind of job?
Well, I went into what they call a plating company, where they making automobile parts, and then they plated the parts. Well, it was nickel or else zinc or chrome. That's where I spent until I broke out with what they call the chrome itch. It started on my hands, then it went up my arms, and all of a sudden it was around my eyes. And when I'd go to bed at night, those things would ooze, and I'd wake up in the morning and couldn't open my eyes because the scabs would heal. I'd get the water soaking good and get them loosened up.
Right.
So okay, it's time for me to get out of this kind of a deal. So then I went into another place where they had called die casters, where they make zinc die cast, run a die casting machine. And later on, from there I went to another die casting company, and I got to be with part-time foreman at nights for the press room, and they bumping me all over the place, you know. And finally it got where I was there, 18 and a half years? And all of a sudden we had I was in a tool room then, and I was lead man. But this one guy, he was kind of, you ain't gonna tell him nothing what to do. We had one machine that you could set it on automatic and make a X feed automatic. Then you run another machine while that's doing it, because it takes quite a while to do that. So my supervisor seen that, and he says, get on him and have him run that other machine. So I got on him, and the thing of it was, he played golf with the owner of the shop. And all of a sudden, I get called in the office, and I'm trying to take over the company and do as I please and all that. And so he says, this George has taken your place. Okay, so as soon as I found that out, I was belonged to KSC then, and this one guy that belonged there, he was belonged to KSC too, and he belonged to our church. And he kept, every time I'd see him, he'd always, hey, why don't you come down there and apply for a job? So that's when they were McDonnell Douglas Electronics, where they made parts for airplanes, see? So I said, okay. When the boss told me that I was going to be downgraded, I went over there and I applied for a job. Oh, yeah, come on. So run me through the test. Okay, you could start tomorrow if you want to. I said, well, I'm going to give the company a little break. I'm going to give them at least a week's notice. So I went back and I told him, I says, Saturday's my last day. Oh, then the owner of the place, hey, come unglued. Oh, you guys are always just jumping all over to get more money. Then you work for the Air Force, and they do all this tilting of the mics and everything to make everything go up. I found out he was wrong, because once everything was done with Cadillacs and indicators. And check it out, it's got to be right there, and he is 0 and 0. So, but after I got through messing around there with the die-cast company, I went to this other one. Well, then I was there 12 and a half years, and they, if I'd have been there 2.5 more years, I could have doubled my retirement. But as it was, they sold the company. Well, they sold McDonnell Douglas, and we were associated with them, so they kicked us out. And the other company that I bought in, they didn't care one way or another, because they got Boeing bought this company out anyway. Well, Boeing, I'm still getting retirement from Boeing.
Okay. Now, if you kind of look back at the whole thing, how do you think your time in the service affected you, either in the way you look at the world or the way direction your life took or whatever? What sort of effect do you think that had?
Well, like I said originally, when I was in high school, I was taking a lot of different things to be, like go to college and become an engineer. Math and trig and geometry and all that. And that was, my heart was set on that, boy. That, I want to go to college. Then he said to you, no, you graduated, you go in the Army. So I never did get to try out for that. that was not really the way I had planned on my life being. I think it just kind of took everything upside down, and then I had to try to find a new source of what I was going to do.
Right.
Because my original one wasn't going to be there. Well, the Army would have paid my college, but like it says, when I was too shaky, so then I took up a correspondence course in television. And I got graduated from that. I went to work for this one guy part-time, repairing TVs. And I guess him and his wife had a problem, and then I thought I better get the heck out of this mess. I don't want to get caught in it.
Right.
So that's, like I put it, I'd rather have seen it worked out how I'd done if I'd went to college, but I'll never know that.
Yeah. You seem to have come out pretty well in the end anyway. So, well, thank you very much for talking to us
Well,
today.
thank you.